Living in Portland is great until you realize that you have to choose between two completely different worlds, the east side or the west side. On one side, you've got artsy, walkable streets and quirky homes with all of the charm. And on the other, you've got urban density, sleek condos, sprawling parks, the beginning of the suburbs, and even a touch of luxury. And here's the challenge. Where you live can completely shape your experience in this city. The wrong choice, it could mean frustrating commutes, higher housing costs, somewhere that's just not quite your vibe, or worse yet, accidentally living next to Uncle Jim, who thinks every day is a good day for a barbecue, and unsolicited advice about your lawn care. Oh, maybe that's just a me issue. The real question is, which side of the river is actually the right fit for you? Let's find out. So one thing that I didn't know when I moved to Portland was that it was divided east to west by a huge river. This is the Willamette River that I'm standing by right here on the east side right now. Over here I'm in Sellwood, and this is the Sellwood Riverfront Park. Right here is the Sellwood Bridge, taking you east to west. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the key differences between what it's like to live on the east side versus the west side. And if you are thinking of moving to Portland, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. People are finding these videos that I'm making all the time, and they're reaching out when they're ready to buy a home here in Portland. And I'd love to help. So definitely get in touch via call, via text, email, or just schedule a Zoom call, and all of that contact information you will be able to find below this video. I can't wait to hear from you, and I can't wait to help you buy your dream home here in Portland. So when it comes to outdoor spaces, Portland's love for nature is evident on both sides of the river, but the types of green spaces that you'll encounter and how you experience them can vary east to west. The east side of Portland has a more urban, community-focused approach to outdoor spaces. Parks tend to be a bit smaller, more frequent, and kind of woven directly into the neighborhoods. This means you'll have easy access to parks pretty much no matter where you live, making them sort of a core part to your day-to-day living. Some of the more iconic parks on the east side here include the Laurelhurst Park and Mount Tabor Park, which is located on an extinct volcano that rises above the surrounding neighborhoods. It offers stunning views and even views off to the east of Mount Hood. And this is actually a pretty coveted neighborhood where there's beautiful classic architecture and beautiful homes that are built up on the mountainside. And of course, Mount Tabor is just a really great place to go and relax. You can go for a hike up there. You can even set up a hammock up at the very top of the mountain because there's a lot of trees that are well spaced together. And of course, the Sellwood Riverfront Park, which is right here. This is right on the Willamette River here. And the neighborhood of Sellwood kind of just starts right beyond this park here. But definitely the thing to remember, whether you're in the northeast, the southeast, there's also tiny little parks like Piccolo Park, or one of my favorites was Ivan Street Park. It's a tiny little park, but they're just kind of everywhere. These tiny little neighborhood parks that are wonderful for the kids. Another one that my kids enjoy is the Wilshire Park. That's also a really good park too. Here on the west side, one of the main differences in the parks that you'll see is just how vast and forested and expansive they are. Right now I'm in Southwest in Gabriel Park, and behind me you can see a big expansive open area. There's tennis courts over there, baseball fields, there's a really awesome children's area. But now I'm kind of walking on this trail and all of a sudden I'm in the forest. So that's one of the things that you will see in the parks here on the west side of town. They're just usually a lot more acreage. There's a lot more forest in the area. This is a paved trail that eventually will turn into an actual trail, as you'll see in a second here. We're gonna go over a bridge. There's like a nice little creek here. And that is pretty much how the parks are on the west side. One of the largest urban forested parks in the whole country, which is Forest Park, something like 5,000 acres. There's 80 miles worth of trails, and it's just a huge park. Then you've got Tryon Creek Park, you've got Markham Nature Area. Oh, of course, you've got Washington Park. So that is one of the key differences between the parks here on the west side versus the parks on the east side. You'll see a lot more neighborhood parks on the east side because of the grid sort of layout. It's more children focused a lot of the times over there, or just kind of activities focused rather than nature focused, if that makes sense. Now, so as you may have guessed, when it comes to housing styles, the east side and the west side of Portland offer very distinct choices that cater to various different tastes and lifestyles. Over here on the east side, you'll find a variety of architectural styles, including some charming Victorian homes, so many classic craftsman style homes, bungalows, many different types of styles. One of the most appealing aspects of living on the east side is the relatively affordable housing market, especially when you zoom out and look at all the other major cities on the west coast. And so while prices are on the rise due to the area's growing popularity, you can definitely still find some single family homes that are pretty cheap by comparison to these other markets on the west coast. And that definitely makes Portland a pretty ideal place for families to relocate and start a kind of a new way of life. And it's cheaper to buy a house. Over here in the southwest, you can really see some of the contrast I'm talking about. This is in the quaint little neighborhood of Maplewood, and I'm just right here on one of the main streets. There's no sidewalk, just kind of sharing the road with the trucks here. You've got a mix of a lot of different types of homes here from pretty much all different eras. There's early century bungalows, there's even new construction and everything in between. Behind me here, this actually looks like a house, but it's a cafe. This is the Maplewood Cafe. Got a little coffee here. This is just kind of walking down one of the side streets. It is kind of a steep little grade here, and that's pretty typical for the Southwest. You're just gonna have a lot more hilly terrain. And just going for a little walk here to give you an idea of what the different houses look like. These little roads they're pretty quiet, but you also have to share the road with cars. So you got people kind of walking in the streets, driving by, but it's very quiet. It's the type of neighborhood where you've got basketball hoops in the middle of the street up ahead. But then of course you will also see stuff like downtown and the Pearl and those very like urban dense areas as well. So that's kind of why I say that the west side has probably the most diversity as far as the neighborhoods go. As I'm walking around this quiet Sellwood neighborhood, you'll notice that it feels a little bit different than the west side. You've got just more flat terrain, and if you notice coming up here, there's an intersection and it's pretty square. See this? See this corner? So that just means that what we're dealing with here it's just more of a grid here on the east side. And so that kind of makes it a bit easier to navigate. You have the number streets. This is Southeast 9th Avenue. And obviously the farther east you go, the numbers get higher. And that'll go all the way out to Gresham, basically. That makes it, I would argue, quite a bit easier to navigate the east side, especially if you are going to be walking around a lot or if you're going to be biking. The east side is definitely a popular destination among people that are biking around. I'd just like to point out that it may seem nice and quiet and peaceful like this, but if I walk another 4 blocks that way, I'm just gonna show you what it's like on when you get to one of the main drags. That's just kind of one of the common things on the east side, where it's always quiet neighborhood, and then somewhere nearby you're going to see a main street that is, you know, like Milwaukee or 13th or Hawthorne or Division. There's a lot of these different neighborhoods on the east side that have that. And so one of the things that you will find about Sellwood is that it kind of feels like its own little town. And that's because originally Sellwood was its own town before it became annexed into Portland. And it still kind of feels that way, you know, like Sellwood is just, I think it's about 1 to 2 square miles, and you've got pretty much everything you need, from grocery stores to all the different shops and restaurants. And then you've got like charming houses in the neighborhood just like this. There are well-established sidewalks to walk around on and neighborhoods. You know, I've lived on the east side a lot. I now live on the west side, so it's been an adjustment for me personally to get used to not having this environment where there's sidewalks. So transportation and just getting around in general is another area where you'll notice a pretty big difference between the east side and west side. Here on the east side, Portland is known for being extremely bike friendly and walkable, making it a very popular choice for people who prefer to get around without a car. The streets on the east side are generally laid out in a simple grid, which makes it pretty easy to get around, be that on a bike or a car or walking. This right here, I'm actually walking along a bike path. As you can see, there's a biker going by right now. And this is one of the east to west bikeways known as the Portland Greenway. And these are residential streets that are designated for bikes and local traffic only, which makes it easy and just kind of a pleasure to get around. And the terrain is mostly flat, unlike the west side. I mean, there's some hills, like as you get closer to Mount Tabor, for example, the terrain, the topography kind of goes up a bit, but it's nothing like the west side where you're dealing with big, steep, long, persistent hills. When you live on the central east side, it feels like you can get all the way to the other side of town in 15 minutes. Now that I live on the west side, things are more like 25, 30 minutes away. So that's one thing to take into consideration if you're living on the west side, specifically southwest, and you have to get to any other part of Portland, like the east side, it's going to be trafficy. Now for something even more quiet and luxurious, we're up here in the West Hills. This is the southwest part of the West Hills. And as you can see behind me, there is a beautiful expansive view. And it keeps going up. Up there is Council Crest Park right there behind me. And it's just beautiful nature. The homes here are quite a bit more expensive than pretty much anywhere else in the city of Portland. And you know, there's obviously some pros and cons to living up here. If you listen, it's very quiet. Even more quiet than other parts of the Southwest because, well, we're at some elevation and we're a little bit more detached from the city. Another pro would be that the houses are definitely extremely beautiful, probably some of the nicest in all of Portland. On the con side, you've got to pretty much deal with driving everywhere. If you got to run some errands, definitely got to drive. If you want to go into town, got to drive. And in the winter months, on the rare instances where we get snow, these hills can tend to be pretty treacherous and difficult to navigate. And of course, on the positive side, you're just basically immersed in nature. I mean, these hills are effectively forest that all the houses are built amongst. And most of these streets that are residential, as you can see, are very low trafficked. Definitely some of the most expensive real estate in Portland. Be prepared to spend $800,000, $900,000, maybe even over $1 million for houses over here. But also be prepared for a beautiful, tranquil lifestyle and maybe even a beautiful view out your window. Some of the neighborhoods in the West Hills that you can check out are Portland Heights, Sylvan Heights, Arlington Heights. These are all southwest neighborhoods. And then if you want to be in the northwest, there's Willamette Heights, Kings Heights, Forest Park. All of these neighborhoods are going to be pretty high end. There's definitely instances of old houses being knocked down and building new ones. I've seen like brand new construction built atop a hill where you can see all of Portland. And then there's also older classic homes that have been refurbished and remodeled throughout the years. Overall, in these West Hills neighborhoods, you're going to expect high-end real estate with a lot of different homeowners that are keeping their properties up to date and well maintained. Definitely if you're looking for luxury, peace, tranquility, and you don't really have a limit to your budget, or you can spend $1 million plus, enjoy. So right now we are sort of descending down the hills into the downtown area. And as you can see, there's still a lot of very nice high-end houses. Here's even some brand new construction being built. And this takes us right down into the downtown area. So if you are living in these West Hills, you're gonna take a road like this down into the center of the city. We are getting into, this is like the Goose Hollow neighborhood here. And as you can see, there's some high-end houses right over there. And then over here, we've got some really tall buildings, condos, apartments. And we're pretty much getting into the thick of the city here. So let's let's hop out in a minute and go for a little walk. This light that we're coming up to is Burnside, West Burnside, and Burnside goes pretty much all the way into Beaverton and all the way to the west into Gresham. And now we are on 23rd Avenue, where it's just a long stretch of urban businesses. You might run into some traffic, but that is because there are a lot of shops and restaurants and stuff going on, and it's only one lane traffic in each direction. When a bus stops or when there's people crossing the street, you've got to stop. The other thing that can be a challenge in this neighborhood if you're just coming to do some shopping or get out of the house is parking. As you can see, can be kind of tricky. So we're walking down Northwest 23rd. Now we're in the Northwest. I'm doing this to give you an idea of how it looks in the urban areas. We've got tons of stores. There's clothing stores. There are restaurants, very high-end restaurants, mind you. Pizza spots, shoe stores, anything that you could really want. And now, as I turn off of 23rd, this is just going to give you an idea of what the contrast is like. Because if you look across the street, now we've got houses. These are all early 20th century bungalows and Victorian homes, very classic architecture that you'll see a lot more on the east side as well. This is what Portland is all about, especially over on the east side, even though right now we're on the west side. Just look at this. Look at these houses behind me. It's almost like San Francisco a little bit, right? Very close together lots, super old construction. This is kind of a characteristic that you'll see throughout Portland in many different neighborhoods. Here's one that is a really old apartment building. And then over here, we've got some more apartment style living. So if you really are after a super dense urban environment, this Northwest district, this is called the Alphabet District, or also known as Nob Hill. I'm approaching another stretch of businesses on 21st Avenue that are also, similar to 23rd, where you're gonna have a lot of businesses and shops and restaurants and whatnot. So this little area right here, actually right in between 23rd and 21st, is kind of a gem of an area to live in. It tends to be a bit more expensive. Again, these houses are not cheap, upper 6, 7, 8, 900s. By comparison, this part of the west side has that mix of urban density and residential, whereas over in the southwest, like the Maplewood neighborhood where we were earlier, you have a lot more of a suburban feel. So that just kind of illustrates the vast variety that you get here on the west side of Portland compared to the east side, where it's more like a grid and a lot more residential neighborhoods that have sort of a main drag, kind of like Northwest 23rd, like I was saying. Then as far as entertainment goes, the east side has an eclectic sort of grassroots feel, I would say. It's more relaxed and quirky. And this is where you'll find some of Portland's best small music venues, perfect for catching some local bands or some regional or even national touring bands. And also there are thousands of different types of bars on the east side, whether you want a dive bar with pool tables or a fancy upscale cocktail bar, there's something for everyone. But in contrast, the west side entertainment scene tends to be more kind of traditional and refined. And there's major cultural institutions like the Portland Art Museum or the Oregon Symphony. You can see it over there. This is the historic Irvington neighborhood, where there are just some really stunning, beautiful homes. If you want to live in this neighborhood, you're gonna have to spend $800,000 at least. There's just some pretty stunning, very historic homes here. Other sort of high-end neighborhoods that you can look for on the east side include Alameda. There's some nice luxurious homes on Mount Tabor. Beaumont, Wilshire is pretty good. It's sort of like adjacent to Alameda, but it's not going to be quite as expensive, but it still has a very nice feel. Look at this beautiful Craftsman. There's just so many nice homes, and they tend to be pretty big over here in Irvington. Another big factor that I know people are thinking of when they're trying to decide where to live is the cost. And so what I'll say when it comes to the cost of living, it's mostly going to be a wash for day-to-day expenses like groceries, eating out, that kind of thing, there's not really gonna be a noticeable difference from one side of the river to the other in terms of price of a cup of coffee or a meal. Both sides kind of has pricey stuff and both sides kind of has affordable stuff if you know where to look for each one. So for this, we'll kind of talk about housing prices, and on the east side, cost of housing tends to be a bit more affordable overall, especially the farther east you go. Though this gap has definitely been narrowing in recent years as more people move to the vibrant, creative, energy parts like Alberta, Selwood, and neighborhoods around Hawthorne like Sunnyside and Richmond. You can still find more reasonably priced homes here, especially in neighborhoods like Montavilla, Lentz, St. John's, or really anywhere east of the 205. To give a few examples, the median home price of Richmond in the heart of Southeast is $600K. The median price of Sunnyside is $550K. Lentz, a little bit farther east, is around $400. St. John's around $450. But then in, historic Irvington, your median price is $825. Or if you're in Alameda, the median home price is closer to $1 million, right around $950,000. Comparatively, if you look at the suburby areas on the west side, you can spend around $575 to $675. But in neighborhoods like Arlington Heights, Willamette Heights, the Southwest Hills, the median prices range from $775 up to $1 million. But again, over on the west side, I've sold condos in the 200s. So there's really a price range for anyone depending on what your budget is and what type of environment you want to live in. This, by the way, I just came up on Alberta Street. This is Northeast Alberta, and there's just a lot of stuff pretty much from 37th all the way down to about 11th or so on this street. And there's just shops and restaurants, and I feel like I should be keeping track of how many times I say shops and restaurants and bars, but there's just so much of that all over town, and I hope this video is giving you an idea of what it's like. All right, so here in the Pearl District is probably where you will see the most stark contrast between living on the east side and living on the west side. You're not gonna see any houses here. You're not going to see any yards. So if you want a lifestyle where you don't have to mow your lawn and you don't have to keep up with any yard work, and you don't even want to live in a house, this is probably your spot, because the Pearl is, not only is it extremely walkable, but your living options are pretty much condos. And so you've got a lot of streets where it's mixed use stuff, where you've got kind of walkways like this, and then businesses all up and down the street, whether that's a burger spot, maybe you want to pop in and get some home decor, or maybe you want to go wine tasting. So this is a really cool area. Common theme here is mixed use, ground level businesses, and then tall, almost even high rise stuff. See, look at that. That are going to be exclusively condo living here in the Pearl. And a lot of people consider this part of downtown, but it's really not. It's the Pearl District here in the Northwest. And again, this just goes to show you the vast contrast that you see not only within Portland, but on the west side of town. One of the most important differentials between the east side and the west side is that the west side of Portland has downtown. So we are currently here in downtown Portland. And this is where you're gonna find a lot of hotels. You're gonna find a lot of much taller buildings. You're gonna find a lot of entertainment, actually. There's movie theaters here. Right across the street is a big movie theater. You're gonna find indoor shopping malls. You know, your big stores like, I don't know, Nordstrom's. There's a lot of entertainment, like there's right up the street here is the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall. I don't think you can see it. And there's smaller theaters. There's the Portland Museum. There's just a lot of different stuff happening in downtown. And behind me, you can't really see it here, but behind me, a couple blocks is Pioneer Square, and you've got a lot of food carts over there. Also, you have one of the most epic farmers markets in all of Portland, which is the PSU, Portland State University Farmers Market, which is just a couple blocks this way. So here's Park Avenue, and if you go farther down that way, that is where you'll see the farmers market happening every Saturday, rain or shine. Got a lot of older buildings like this. And then directly next to it, you have newer buildings like this. All right, let's face it. I mean, not all of downtown Portland is nice. I mean, there's certain parts that are still trying to make a comeback from the pandemic, obviously. And so, yeah, it's starting to get dark. And since I'm over here in downtown, I wanted to pop over here to the Midtown Beer Garden. It's one of my favorite spots to eat in downtown. There's just a whole bunch of food carts. So I'm gonna pop in here and get a quick bite to eat. So if you wanna keep watching some more videos, I'd recommend checking out this one next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you over there.